Princess Dracula, Book 1, Part 9, Special Online Series, author John Patrick Kennedy.
I cannot say what happened, she whispered to herself, but what will I tell them? The woman led Ruxandra downstairs into the main kitchen. It was warm with the glowing coals of the fireplace and smelled wonderful. There had been beef a short time before, and pork and chicken over the past few days. There was a large pot of broth simmering over the coals. Two other women, one younger, one much older, were setting up the fire. "Now come, child," said Lady Demetra. "Give me your cloak." Ruxandra hesitated, then undid the belt at her waist and let the cloak fall open. The women gasped at the surcoat underneath. "Dear God, child, is that all you've got on?" "They cut my clothes off," Ruxandra said, "just before they—" She couldn't say what they had really done, so she let them believe the obvious instead. "There's blood all over your legs," the younger woman said. "Are you hurt?" "Of course," Ruxandra said. "You see red blood and I see gold." "Dear me," Demetra squinted. "Red blood, gold what? What is gold?" "Apologies for my ramblings. It isn't mine. There was a fight. People were killed. My father—" I ripped his head off and drank his blood. "My father was beheaded right beside me." The young one's hand went to her mouth as if doing so would stop the horror. The older one shook her head. "We heard of Prince Dracula's death," Lady Demetra said, "and we had heard his daughter disappeared as well. We thought, well—" Ruxandra swallowed hard. "After the fight, I took these clothes from one of the dead men and ran into the woods. I've been lost ever since." "You're lucky you still have all your fingers," said the old one. "It's a deep frost out there, cold enough to freeze a body solid." "Very lucky," said Lady Demetra. She picked up a bowl and began filling it with broth. "Goethe, heat water. Lucer, get the tub." The older woman went off to the corner where a large wooden tub sat. The younger ran to a barrel and dipped a large pot in it. "Take this," Lady Demetra said. "You must be starving." Ruxandra took the bowl and sniffed. It was full of winter vegetables and herbs that had blended together with chicken fat and the juice of the meat. Ruxandra blew on it while the woman fetched a spoon. The first mouthful was an explosion of warmth and flavour. Ruxandra could taste each of the ingredients that went into it, and each one was wonderful. She savoured each mouthful, letting the heat from the broth warm her from the inside out. It was delicious, and it did nothing to fill up the hollow inside her. The women took turns sitting beside her while the water for her tub heated. Each heartbeat filled her ears. The young one held her hand for a little while, and Roxanne felt the girl's pulse rushing through her skin. It would be so easy to— No, this time I have a choice. The water was finished, and the wash tub set out in front of the fire. Lady Demetra helped her take off the underwear, and all three women stared in horror at the dried blood on her. They poured water over her and started working. Twice, Lady Demetra made Ruxandra step out of the tub so Lucer and Goethe could throw out the bloody water. Each time the other two went past with it, the blood filled Ruxandra's nostrils, making her drool. She wiped a hand across her mouth to make sure there were no fangs growing and to catch any spit. Goethe fetched a dress, old and patched but clean and still serviceable. It was short on Ruxandra but covered her and didn't smell of blood or dirt, and was so much better than the feel of the filthy clothes against her skin. "There you are," Lady Demetra said. "Much better. Now we must find you a place to sleep that's out of the way." "My room," Goethe said. She blushed the moment it left her mouth. "I mean, it's really just a corner of the pantry, but it's warm and I'll not be using it during the day. Would that be acceptable, Princess? Until we find you better?" Ruxandra nodded. "Yes, thank you." Goethe led her in and then helped her lie down. After the night in the dirt in the forest, the rough cloth of the blankets and the thick straw of the mattress felt wonderful. Ruxandra thanked the girl and closed her eyes. Hunger gnawed at her. Ruxandra pretended she was in bed back at the convent, sent there without supper for some misbehaviour or other that she and Tony and Madison would laugh at with the sunrise. "I'm not hungry at all. I don't need to eat. I'll be fine." When she awoke, she was starving. She crawled out of the bed and into the kitchen. It was empty, save for the old woman, Lucer, who sat on a short stool in front of the fireplace, her back to Ruxandra. Despite her age, her heart moved in a strong, steady rhythm, driving the blood through her veins with the vigour of one much younger. It called to Ruxandra like a wounded animal cries called to wolves. Her eyes locked on the old woman's neck. She took a step, then another, and before she knew it, she was behind the old woman. Lusa poked at the coals and sighed. She rose from the stool and stretched her back with a groan and a creak of old bones. Her heart sped with emotion, rushing to send blood to fill her moving joints as she stood and turned. "Oh!" Lusa jumped back and stumbled. Ruxandra caught her with one arm to keep her from tumbling into the coals. Lusa gasped with relief. "You startled me, child." Lusa's pulse rushed underneath Ruxandra's fingertips. The smell of the old woman, sweat and cooking grease and wood smoke, filled her nostrils. Ruxandra's eyes dropped to the vein in Lusa's throat, watching it pulse in time with her heartbeat. Almost against her will, Ruxandra moved her face closer and closer to Lusa's. "You've slept the day through," the old woman said. "Not surprising with what those soldiers did to you. Come here, girl." Lusa pulled Ruxandra into her embrace. Ruxandra couldn't resist her. Her arms went around Lusa, and she rested her head on the woman's shoulder. Her mouth felt strange, different, and Ruxandra knew the fangs were back. Lusa hugged her tighter. "You'll be better soon." "No! Get away from me! I'll hurt you!" Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Instead, Ruxandra turned her head sideways, drove her teeth into the old woman's neck, and drank. Lusa didn't have time to scream. She pushed and fought, striking at Ruxandra with hands made hard and strong by years of working in the kitchens. She clawed at Ruxandra's face, trying to reach her eyes. Ruxandra closed them tight, crushing the woman to her body. Lusa's ribs creaked, and the air whooshed from her lungs. Ruxandra wanted to stop. She tried to let go, tried to pull away from Lusa's body. She couldn't. Lusa's blood rushed down her throat. It filled her body with warmth and strength. Ruxandra wanted, needed every drop of it. Lusa's arms fell to her sides. Her struggles turned to spasms. Ruxandra felt the last of the old woman's life fading away, felt her soul leaving her body. Then Lusa was still. Ruxandra stopped squeezing, and the woman slid to the floor. Ruxandra licked her lips to catch the last of the blood. Her fangs retreated into her gums with a squish. Ruxandra shuddered from the strange feeling. She gazed at her hands and saw that the veins were protruding, the old woman's blood turning them black as it spread through her body. She held them up, watching in horrified fascination as the black faded and her hands were once more pale and smooth. She dropped them to her sides, and her eyes fell on Lusa's crumpled corpse. The old woman's eyes were opened. The holes in her neck did not drip, and her skin had gone pale and sallow in death. "Oh, dear God." Ruxandra's knees trembled and threatened to give way. What have I done? In the cavern, Ruxandra had acted on instinct. She had been a beast, unthinking, uncaring about anything except feeding. Though she remembered every detail, she'd felt nothing when she killed those 5 men. Nothing but hunger and relief as the blood flowed through her body. This time, Ruxandra had known what she was doing. Even though she had been horrified, she hadn't been able to stop herself. She had realized what she was going to do as soon as she felt Lusa's pulse from across the room. Worse, she had reveled in it. "I'm a monster. I must leave before they discover the body. I must..." What? What can I do? Where can I go? The terrified stare on Lusa's face seemed accusatory. Ruxandra's hand went to her mouth again, as if she could wipe away the blood she knew wasn't there. "If I'm around people, I'll do this again, and I cannot do this again. I will not. I must leave." They had taken Ruxandra's surcoat, cloak, and boots. She had no idea how to get them back or if she could. The blood on the surcoat had been thick enough that it should have been destroyed, but the cloak might still be around. She just needed to find it and her boots. Then she could run. She wasn't sure where she would go or what she would do. She stared down at the old woman's body. Tears blurred her vision. She reached down, hesitated, then knelt beside her. She wanted to close the old woman's eyes. She wanted to straighten her out, but she couldn't bring herself to touch the corpse. She began to cry.
"Lusa!" The voice was rough and male and strong and came from the stairs above. "Is there any tea left? I can't sleep, Lusa!"
Footsteps, heavy and hard, hit the stairs. Ruxandra stood up. Her throat closed with fear and grief, robbing her of words. She stood speechless and helpless when the big man stepped off the last stair and into the kitchen.